What if the biggest signal in Iraq right now isn't the rumor everyone is talking about, but the quiet financial changes happening behind the scenes? What if the real story isn't a sudden overnight moment, but a system being rebuilt piece by piece in front of us? Welcome back to Global Currency World, the channel where we focus on facts, structure, and grounded analysis, not hype. If you've been following Iraq, the Iraqi dinar, and the long-term reform story, then today's video matters because there's a lot of noise in this space right now. Rumors, timelines, exchange predictions, people throwing around dates with confidence. But today, we're slowing everything down and asking one important question. What is actually happening inside Iraq right now? Because when you step back and look at the bigger picture, something important becomes clear. Iraq is moving not through dramatic headlines, but through banking reform, digital systems, trade expansion, and political coordination. And no, this video is not about hype. I'm not giving you a magical timeline. I'm not promising a rate. I'm not telling you tomorrow is the day. What I am doing is breaking down the structural signals that matter and showing you why many analysts believe Iraq's long-term financial foundation looks stronger today than it did a year ago. Stay with me because by the end of this video, you'll understand why the quiet changes may matter more than the loud headlines. Global currency world. Let's start with the biggest misunderstanding in this community. Most people are waiting for one event, one announcement, one number, one moment that suddenly changes everything. But major economic reform almost never works that way. Countries do not rebuild financial credibility overnight. They build it through systems, and that's exactly what Iraq appears to be doing. Think about what has been happening over the last few years. International banking reforms, digital payment systems, audit reviews, conversations with international financial institutions, trade diversification, banking compliance upgrades. These are not random events. They are pieces of a larger financial structure. That matters because a stronger financial system creates something Iraq has needed for years: credibility. And credibility is what attracts international investment, strengthens institutions, improves banking confidence, and supports long-term monetary stability. So instead of asking what headline happened today, a better question may be, what system is Iraq building right now? Because the answer to that question tells us far more than speculation ever will. Global currency world. Now let's talk about Iraq's banking system because honestly, this may be one of the biggest stories that people are missing. For years, Iraq's banking sector struggled with international trust, limited compliance, weak modernization, heavy cash dependence, and barriers to global banking relationships. But recently, Iraq's banking reform effort appears to be accelerating. Several large Iraqi financial institutions have reportedly gone through international audit and modernization efforts. Why does that matter? Because global banking runs on trust. Banks need compliance. Banks need transparency. Banks need international standards. Without those things, global partnerships become difficult. With them, international banking access becomes possible. This doesn't mean instant transformation, but it does mean Iraq appears to be laying infrastructure for a more connected financial future. And when you combine banking reform with stronger oversight and better international coordination, it starts to paint a bigger picture. A country trying to modernize its financial foundation. Now let's shift to digital transformation because this part often gets ignored, and honestly, it shouldn't. For years, Iraq relied heavily on cash transactions. Large portions of the economy operated informally. That creates problems. Less transparency, less tracking, lower financial efficiency, and weaker institutional trust. So what's changing? Iraq has increasingly pushed toward electronic payment systems, banking modernization, and digital financial infrastructure. Why is that important? Because modern economies depend on financial systems that can move money efficiently, securely, and transparently. Electronic payments reduce friction. Digital systems improve reporting. and stronger infrastructure makes large-scale economic activity easier to support. This isn't flashy. It's not exciting headline material, but it matters, because behind every stable financial system is infrastructure most people never see, and Iraq appears to be building more of it. Let's talk trade and diversification. One of the biggest criticisms of Iraq for years has been simple: too much dependence on oil. When one sector controls too much of an economy, risk increases. Oil prices move, global demand shifts. Geopolitics creates uncertainty. That's why diversification matters. And recently, Iraq has shown growing interest in trade expansion, logistics improvements, customs development, and broader commercial activity. Why is this important? Because stronger economies tend to rely on multiple sources of revenue. Trade matters, industry matters, infrastructure matters, investment matters. A more diversified economy becomes more resilient, and resilience matters when countries try to strengthen long-term financial credibility. This doesn't happen overnight, but progress often happens quietly before people notice the results. Now let's discuss politics, because whether we like it or not, political stability matters. Economic reform becomes difficult when governments constantly shift direction. Policies stall, budgets delay, institutional momentum slows down. That's reality. What many observers are watching right now, whether Iraq's political leadership can maintain enough stability to continue financial reforms. Because banking modernization, trade development, and digital transformation require coordination, and coordination requires leadership. No country modernizes financially without political support behind the scenes. This doesn't mean politics suddenly become perfect. No system works that way. But it does mean functionality matters. And functionality often creates momentum. Let's pause for a second and talk about expectations. Because this community has been through a lot. Years of rumors, missed timelines, speculation cycles, predictions that never happened. And after enough time, people either become overly excited or deeply skeptical. Both reactions are understandable, but there's a healthier middle ground. Stay informed, stay grounded, watch the evidence. Pay attention to structural developments instead of emotional headlines. Because real economic transformation takes time, sometimes years, sometimes longer than people want. But that doesn't mean nothing is happening. Sometimes progress looks boring before it looks obvious. Let's talk preparation. And no, I'm not talking about panic. I'm not talking about obsession. I'm talking about calm preparation. If you follow this space, learn the process, understand the institutions involved, understand banking systems, understand documentation, understand financial basics, because preparation reduces anxiety. Knowledge creates confidence, and confidence helps people avoid emotional decision-making. You don't want to react emotionally in uncertain moments. You want to respond intelligently. That mindset matters more than hype ever will. Here's the bigger picture. When you zoom out, Iraq appears to be working across multiple areas at once: banking reform, digital modernization, trade activity, financial compliance, political coordination. These are not isolated stories. They connect. And when systems begin moving together, momentum becomes easier to recognize. Does that guarantee a timeline? Number. Does it guarantee outcomes? Number. But it does suggest movement. And understanding movement matters more than chasing rumors. So what should you take away from today? Simple. Stay calm. Stay informed. Stay prepared. And focus on signals, not noise. At Global Currency World, we'll continue breaking down the developments that matter, separating speculation from structure and emotion from evidence. Because this story is bigger than rumors. It's about watching a country attempt long-term financial transformation in real time. And whether you've been following this for months or for years, your patience matters. Your research matters. Your discipline matters. If you found value in today's breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe to Global Currency World, and share this video with someone who wants facts instead of hype. Thanks for watching. Stay grounded, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.